Hello, and welcome to Cooking Time with /Echo. I am a little peckish. I'm looking at the time there. It's getting to be about dinner time. And the house happens to be empty. So I'm going to make one of my favorite little things, which are the Japanese little rice dumplings. Dango, I think is what they're actually called. You see different varieties all the time, and the one that I make has a sort of a sweet soy sauce base to it. So, without too much further ado, I'm going to turn the camera around and we'll begin. Alrighty here. Make sure my angle's right. Yeah, alrighty. Let's do this. Let's see. This is the pot I'm going to boil them in, so I just need some water in here so I can start it heating up. It's a combination of two different types of rice flour. One of them is sweetened and one of them is not. So, I'll be mixing them in this. Alright, two types of flour. Mix them with water, get this nice dough. Boil them here. Sizzle them there. Once I get, forgot to get the skewers out. They're always on skewers. This pot is for the sauce that I'm not ready to make yet. But let's get started with it. Half a cup of water in there. And let that also start heating. Alright. So, first things first, flour. For simplicity's sake, I'm going to pretty much just refer exclusively to milliliters, because that's unambiguous as opposed to ounces or whatever, cups. Anything imperial isn't precise, but milliliters are precise. So to make an amount that's good for me for a meal, which I don't know if this usually is a meal, I use about 250 milliliters of the ordinary rice flour, not the sweetened. So, let me get that in first. Don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. That's just an important, that's not anything to do with this recipe. That's just an important part of cooking. Don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. Your food will turn out much better. And by get your hands dirty, I mean I already washed my hands. That's important too. That's 250 milliliters. On top of that, you also need the other flour, which you add after. You need exactly half as much of the glutinous sweetened flour. And if I don't have enough here, I'm going to have to go open another bag. Hopefully there will be just enough that I can open the bag next time. I think I'm going to be okay. You can even tell it has a different consistency. Damn. It's going to be... Oh, that's enough. It's just enough. I'm going to throw this bag out. Handling white flour like this, maybe I shouldn't have worn all black. Maybe that was a mistake. Alright. So as I said, most importantly is you have the two flours in a ratio of 2 to 1. Next you need water. And the water needs to be warm to the touch, even hot to the touch, but not uncomfortably. You have to be able to handle it the entire time. So, I'm going to grab a mixing spoon and, oh damn, where's the drip catcher? Shoot. That thing is useful. I'll have to get out a piece of paper towel or something. There, this spoon will do. Sheesh, I'm not ready for this yet. Maybe I shouldn't, I guess I shouldn't have turned on this, the boiler for the sauce so quickly. I didn't expect the water to boil that fast. Okay, so my water over here is still ice cold. Okay. I need that water to be hot, then I can work with it. I don't have an exact amount in milliliters of water to add to the amount of flour that I gave you, because the recipe that I originally modified to make into this one, the quantities are all wrong, and if I try to use that amount of water, it ends up soupy instead of doughy. It doesn't work at all. So, I've been mostly eyeballing it. There we go. Okay, not quite that hot. I've got about 120 milliliters of water here. For some reason that just sounds right. It's probably completely wrong, but let's start with that. There's 120 milliliters of warm water. Mix, mix, swirl, mix. Not quite enough, thank goodness. It's much easier to add water than it is to add more flour. Adding flour is a pain that I try to avoid. Gotta get all the flour off the sides and make sure it's all mixed before I add more water. I made a point of not quite adding enough, in theory. But if I add too much water, the dough won't stick together very well, which is a big problem, because the entire point is to have the dough stick together, stick to itself, so I can fold it into little balls, little dumplings. Again, don't be afraid to use your hands. As a matter of fact, once I get all the flour into it, that actually might be just about the right amount of water. It's a little too soft in some parts, but I don't think the flour is evenly distributed. That was 120 milliliters of water on the, put together 375 milliliters of flour. You got an idea for the kind of ratio I'm looking for. This dough does seem, I think it will work. I think it will work. Get some of this excess flour. La da da. I think that will do nicely. The dough is ready, and it should be about this type of consistency. It's a little mushy. It comes apart from itself, but it holds its shape by itself. It doesn't fall apart or drip apart in my hands. So I can shape these little balls, and that's what'll become a dumpling. So my next step is just to get out a plate, and start doing just that. Separate them out and start making dumplings. Shaping dumplings. I want them all to be about the same size so that they go on the skewers nicely. And let's see. Again, probably around that big. There's my hand for reference. That one's maybe a little on the large side. The other ones I make might be smaller than that. I want to say for Mitarashi, which is the type of sauce that I'm going to make here, for Mitarashi dumplings, traditionally there's 5 to a skewer, but their skewers are also a little longer than mine, so I usually roll 4 to a skewer. So when I'm rolling up dumplings, I try to divide it up into an amount that's divisible by 4. Usually with the amount of flour that I use, I end up with 16 to 20 dumplings. 4 or 5 skewers is a nice, not full meal, but if I were to get a little something else, a little bit of soup maybe, anything like that, it's just about perfect. Geez, I'm making big ones today. Need to be careful about that. That's too small. That's better. See, I mean, look at the difference. I'm going to start some music here, since otherwise this rolling process gets kind of boring. And while the camera is some form of my attention, it doesn't exactly garner all my attention, and I'm quickly going to run out of things to talk about. Very shortly, this pot should start to boil, hopefully. Let's see. Yeah, with luck, that pot will start to boil soon, and I will have divvied up the dumplings just in time. It is a rather time-consuming process. Alright, so go over there. Da-da-da, divvy, divvy, divvy. Each of these is 2 dumplings, right about there. Biggest problem that I had originally was the first time I made them, aside from the mixture being wrong and thus the dough not being quite right, was when I dropped them in the pot of boiling water, I didn't notice that they'd stuck to the bottom because I dropped them in too hard. And consequently they didn't cook quite right. Also, I was shaping them and dropping them in the pot as I did so, rather than shaping them all first and dumping them in all together. And the reason I'm doing it like this now, there is a reason. When they first go into the pot of boiling water, they sink. And once it's boiling, after a little while, they float to the top. But they're not done once they float to the top. That means they've started cooking correctly. After that, then they need to cook for about 3 more minutes. So, if I'm putting them in one at a time, it's damn hard to keep track of which one's which, if you know what I mean. Really, I probably should have covered this pot. It would boil faster. It's going to be about this point. I'm almost done. I have a little bit more dough to shape. But it's right about here that you're going to want to salt your boiling pot, like you would do for pasta or just about anything. Stir it up so the salt dissolves. Now you just salt the pot slightly, just like you would do for pasta. Now I'm going to finish up rolling the dumplings, and probably start on the sauce here, just so that there's no downtime. Plate's not quite big enough. Oh, pot's just starting to boil. Perfect. Alright, I'm going to turn this front one back on, because that water is supposed to boil. I'm going to rinse out this bowl. It's not really a pot, it's a bowl. Now obviously once they come out of the boiling water, I'm going to have to scoop them out with a slotted spoon, because they're going to be hot. In order to cool them off quicker so that I can handle them and start skewering them, you dump them into a bowl of cold water. I use the same bowl that I use to mix the dough. Just fill it with cool water, and I usually put it in the fridge, which I did here, just to make sure it's cool. Let's see. Let me start on the Mitarashi sauce. I need an 1/8 cup of soy sauce, that's first. Oh, I said I would do milliliters, wouldn't I? It's about, what, 30 milliliters, I think? Yeah, 30 to 40 milliliters of soy sauce. That's not an 1/8 cup, even though it's not precise, is generally good enough. What happened to my tablespoon? I definitely got out a tablespoon. Here we are. Need 1/2 tablespoon of rice vinegar. Sushi vinegar here. Dump that in right on top of the soy sauce. A full tablespoon of mirin. Which took me a while to find because it wasn't exactly where I thought it was. Check the aisle at your local Asian grocery. Check it near the soy sauce, near the cooking wines. Because there is a tiny bit of an alcohol content to mirin, but it's not enough to qualify as a cooking wine. Sheesh. Water's so fast. Alright. Clean out my tablespoon, because I need it again right away. As you can maybe see, I'm not sure if you can tell. Yeah, you can't. The water in this pot's boiling, so I'm going to add all the dumplings. Like I said last time, I didn't realize they'd stuck, so that's why I stir it now. Make sure it's not stuck to the bottom. Now we have the obnoxious part. Goodness me. I think I'm going to add, start over with the sauce. Get the water out and get new water in. Right here. Let me see. It was a half a cup of water. Here we are. Alright, half a cup of water. I started heating too early again, so here we are. In the meantime, while that heats up slightly, I'm going to rinse this plate off because I'm going to use it later to eat. Sheesh. I do check on this every so often, make sure they haven't like singed themselves to the bottom. But mostly you just have to watch it to make sure they haven't started floating, because that's where you have to start. That's where you have to mark time, is once they've started floating. Alrighty. The tricky part, as I was saying. The Mitarashi sauce, one of the most important parts is that the water base have a little bit of cornstarch in it. A tablespoon is about enough. That's what I usually use. But if you don't do it carefully, the cornstarch will clump up and just end up as little clumps in your finished sauce, and that's not what you want at all. So, I've got my tablespoon, I've got my wooden stirring spoon. I'm going to add that, if possible, a little at a time, so that I can keep it stirred up and have it actually dissolve instead of clumping. Da-da-da. Ow. I'm stirring roughly, so it's... yeah. There we are. Out of the way. Stir it up. Come on. Why are you clumping? I don't like that. It doesn't hurt it to have it clump, but maybe I shouldn't have heated it first. Can't be sure. Oh, I can fix it. Anyway, you want the you want it to be properly. Holy sh**. Excuse me, I do try to not to curse overly much, but I just splashed boiling water on my shirt, and I think I'm well within my right to swear. So, let's turn that burner off while I figure this out. Those still aren't ready, so it's okay. Alright, half a cup. We're beginning again. Half a cup. Get another tablespoon of cornstarch. These aren't floating yet. Where'd my tablespoon go? Over there. I need to clean it again. Darn it, my demonstrations are supposed to be flawless, not I have to start over 3 times. Alright. Tablespoon of cornstarch. I think I'll switch hands, use my off hand to stir, and use my good hand to get the cornstarch in. Okay, it's much more willing to dissolve now that it's cool. still going to have to be quick about it. Oh yes, that's what I was looking for. Okay, so today we all learned something. Don't start heating it until you've already dissolved your cornstarch. Now then, once you have half a cup of water with a tablespoon of cornstarch dissolved in it, thus, move it onto your burner and set it to boil. Keep stirring so your cornstarch doesn't settle. I need to keep an eye over here on my dumplings so they don't cook too long. Maybe you can see they're starting to float. Yep. So there's going to be about 3 minutes they'll be done. I need to watch that. So, now I have what looks like milk because it's water and cornstarch. I have the other ingredients, the mirin, the vinegar, and the soy sauce are all in here. I add those. Still not quite ready because still needs about a 1/4 cup of sugar, which is a lot, but it dissolves and it does a lot to help thicken this into a kind of a syrup almost. Let's see. That's only about half of what I need, but that's enough to start with. Finish my 1/4 cup. There we are. And I'll usually say sprinkle more for luck. Done with that 1/4 cup measure. Goodness, that pot's boiling. Alright. Now all my ingredients for my mirin sauce are in. Or, excuse me, my Mitarashi sauce. All the ingredients are in. I toss things in the sink when I'm done with them. Goodness, that's boiling. It's never happened. These aren't ready yet, though. Soon. Not quite. I'm going to start my grill pan back here. Start that heating. Usually put that on medium. More or less, once I've started heating the Mitarashi sauce, once I've started it, you boil it down so that it actually becomes like a syrup, as I said. Once I've started heating it, I've mostly just never stopped stirring it. I'm always doing it with one hand or the other, unless I have to jog across the room for something, like I have to right now. Hold, please. Come on. I'm just making a mess today. I'm in a hurry. Get my pot of water back out. Back to stirring. Switch hands. Stir. Because it's about time to get my dumplings out. Almost ready. Alright, kill the heat to that pot, and get them ready for the transfer. Jeez, those got big. Alright, boiling water is empty and cooling. Take one of my rare breaks from stirring to drain this bowl. is about time to get some skewers out. Oh, sheesh, right hand. There we go. My sauce is starting to thicken finally. And it's time to start skewering. Which is not easy to do one-handed, I assure you. What I'm probably going to do is take a little bit of heat off the sauce, just a little. And I'm going to basically stop stirring long enough to make a skewer, drop it on, and then stir again. That's pretty much the plan. There is a lot of steam / smoke rising from this pot, but that's actually as should be. Alright, ready? Let's go. A 1, a 2, a 3. Goodness, that's hot. I'm gonna have to take a break. I didn't even make it through a whole skewer. I don't think I let these sit in the cold water long enough. That one was still very hot. Four dumplings to a skewer, drop it on. Oh, careful. Forgot to spray it. Always spray. Cleanup's so much easier. Alright, one on. I didn't make those very centered because I was in a hurry. I'm basically going to be sliding this on and off of the heat. If you have them centered, then they'll spin easier and you can fry them on multiple sides. Goodness me, these are hot. And on. Once the Mitarashi sauce is boiled to an appropriate consistency, which it pretty much is, it tastes good too. You can pretty much drop it down to the absolute lowest setting. Lowest little simmer that it can possibly go, just to keep it hot. Can't use this skewer now. Yeah, I could. I was gonna not use the one that I stuck in my mouth, but since I'm the only one eating, it doesn't actually matter. Hooray! So yeah, leave them in the cold water longer than I did, because these are bloody hot and it's starting to burn my hand on every one. Alright, 2 more skewers. Here we go. You can see I keep flipping the sauce back onto the burner. You don't want it to cool, or it becomes extremely difficult to pour. Alright, last set. Oops, wrong way. Poke them with the pointy end of the skewer, not the blunt end. It works much better. Pro tip right there. Almost always clean my hands after I do that because they're slimy when they come out. Oh, somebody came home. Evening, sir. Evening. That's probably not very clear to the camera, but they've seared a little on that side, and that's perfect. Not dark by any measure of the word, but just that little bit, that little sear, just enough to give it almost a little crunch. That's what makes them perfect. That's what it looks like I'm doing. I'm cooking. Yes. Very good. Powers of observation. Top notch, aren't they? Let's see. I'm going to turn the next one.
We have bad popcorn.
I don't need any bad popcorn, thank you. Usually while they're sizzling, while this is simmering, I start to clean up, because otherwise I got to do it later.
Now I can't do that.
Oh no. You can step out of the way.
Hey, y'all go outside and look straight up. You'll see the moon right next to Jupiter. Your grandmother sent you some pizza.
Of course she sent me some pizza.
Put that in the cupboard.
Let's see. Rotate. There you can see this isn't boiling nearly as much as it was. One flip away, put a little flour.
I got rice with soy sauce.
Sorry about the interruption. I was really hoping to finish up before anybody got home. But that's just about it. My Mitarashi sauce is ready and staying warm, simmering. These are about done. I'm just going to dump them on the plate in a minute once they're done sizzling the other side. I don't know what I'm going to do for a side dish. Poke around, find something. Not quite. But that's it. Little adjust. All right. Bada bing. Leave that to cool. Last step. And you can see fine. Get your sauce. And drip. And drizzle. And coat. So it's thick and syrupy, which should coat it well. I've used the sauce for a couple of other things, not least of which was one time I tossed some chicken wings in it. Not exactly a teriyaki-like flavor, but very tasty. Worked very well. It's empty. You can spin your dumplings to coat them even. And, well, hopefully you have a little bit bigger plate than I do so that they sit easily. But that's it. That's the secret. Oh. That and don't tilt your plate. There we have it. Mitarashi Dango. Yummy, yummy. Always a pleasure, Internet. /Echo, signing off.